she had all of my CDs, like a huge thing of CDs.
Burned CDs.
And I was like, I need those back. I want those back.
He didn't need them back. I went against the will of God for our lives and made a decision to pretty much live in sin because we were not married. And my cousin lovingly but very boldly let me know that I was in the wrong, and that I was going to be held accountable for those decisions. Thankfully, that was a short life lived. I 100% acknowledged that it wasn't aligned with the will of God. I was still going to church, but also having this relationship, taking my son in and out, and then realizing that's not what I wanted for him. That's not what I wanted for us. And his biological father assured me that he would never marry me. And that's not what I wanted for my son. I wanted my son to see somebody who would honor God first, and then honor God through honoring his mother by marrying her. So with that said, I repented of my sins. Ask God for forgiveness for everything that I did during that time. Cameron and I was roommating with my sister at the time. Cameron and I, God, called me to live like in our own household, and God provided this amazing little place for Cameron and I to live in. And so there was this time where it was, I've got my own place. I've honored him in, all the areas that I felt that I needed to do, just to feel free, not that it was like I was being punished or anything like that, but just, that difference in your life when you're just not aligned with God's will. So it was like, okay, I got my place, I've repented, just use this place as a nice sanctuary for Cameron and I to honor the Lord. And so the Lord prompted me to ask forgiveness ask Stephen for forgiveness.
In June of 2008.
Oh, yes.
At that time, Mama and Papa were living in Oregon, and Mama was down visiting Michelle. Mama was like, hey, come over to dinner to Michelle's, and I'd like to see you. I'm only in town for a few days. So I went over, and then, Carmen was there. That was like the first time I had seen her since when I had told her that at Cameron's first birthday, she basically called me a few days later and said, hey, I'm going to give it a shot with the biological. And I said, okay. At that point, I was like, have a nice life. The only other time I saw her was I had to text her one time because she had all of my CDs, like a huge thing of CDs.
Burned CDs.
And I was like, I need those back. I want those back.
He didn't need them back.
Yeah, I needed them back. But that was my music.
He doesn't even use them now.
Well, who uses CDs now? Like, nobody does. But at that time, in my truck, that's what I had. I had a CD player. So I was like, I want my CDs back. I want my music back. I got those back from her. But other than that, the next time I saw her was at Michelle and Josh's house. At this point, they were like married for like 7-8 months.
Yeah.
It was kind of awkward, but like cordial. She told me, yeah, at that time, I think you had just moved out. It was shortly after that, I think, that where the Lord prompted her, or maybe it was before, I don't know, to ask me for forgiveness for whatever reason. Mm-hmm. At this time in my life, I was like hanging out with all my friends all the time. Like we'd go to church, and then we literally would go eat. We loved going to eat sushi, so we'd go eat sushi, or we'd go watch a movie, and I would just hang out all day with them. And like our ritual was, we'd go to church. Afterwards, we'd either go to Islands Burgers, or we go eat sushi. So oftentimes I would get a text from her saying, hey, would you be open to hanging out or meeting up? And for two reasons. One, because I was hanging out with my friends, but two, because I was like, not really. And that went on from like
months.
I don't know, like July to October.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And then one Sunday, October, I was hanging out with my friends, but they all had other plans. At this point, I lived in Escondido, which is like about a 30-minute drive from where I went to church. And I was like, well, I don't want to go back home, because if I go back home, I'm basically not coming back out. I'm like, once I'm home, I'm a homebody. I just want to stay there. And right as lunch was ending, she texted me. She's like, hey, Cameron and I are at this park, Wahomie Park. Never really expected anything. Also kind of like, why does she want to hang out?
So I invited him, and my goal was to ask for forgiveness. There was a friendship that was severed. There was a heart that was broken, and I needed to make that right. So we hung out at the park, and then it was a couple of hours. Him and Cameron just headed off as usual, picked up as usual. It was nearing to get Cameron to get something to eat. So we went to go eat. And that's when I asked him, please forgive me. It was for forgiveness. It was never for anything past that. And I don't think either one of us expected anything.
We went to go eat at this place called Mariscos Las Palmas, and we're sitting there, and so she asked for forgiveness. I was like, okay, it's cool, like I forgive you, and like we can be friends. That was it. Like that's literally where I was at. I was like, we can be friends, and it's fine. And she would say, hey, you know, do you want to come over and hang out? And sometimes I would say yes, sometimes I would say no, depending on what my schedule was like. Whereas a year before, anytime she asked me, I'd be like, yeah, let's hang out. This time it was just more like it was really just like friends. Like, oh no, I'm hanging out with other friends, or yeah, or no, I'm busy doing something else, or yeah, I can hang out this time, you know. And so we'd hang out. And at that time, her sister Rosie was about to get married. Yep. Her and Mike were about to get married, and so then Rosie's like, oh, you should come to the wedding, and you know, they invited me to the wedding, and her and I kind of started hanging out more. And this was right around Thanksgiving, and the holidays were rolling in because they got married December 5th, Mike and Rosie. The movie Blindside was coming out. Yes. And I was like, oh, I really want to go watch that. She's like, me too. So her and I went to go watch it together as friends on December 12th. December 12th of that year. Because we got married a year to the date on December 12th. I'm starting to like, wait, what's going on here? And I'm at home praying to the Lord, like, I don't want this. I'm good where I'm at. Totally okay being single right now. I remember a time when I was praying fervently to the Lord, and he just spoke, and he just brought into my heart, into my mind, the verse, you know, the heart of man makes plans, but the Lord directs his steps. And that's kind of where I knew that. I was like, the Lord was telling me, like, don't fight this if it's for me. Like a week later, maybe, the biological calls again. She texted me, hey, he called it, or he texted me and he wants to meet. And I'm like, why are you telling me? Like, right. You don't need to check in with me. Like, you do whatever you want. You're a big girl, and it's not like we're friends, right? Like, literally at this point, like, we're friends. Like, and she's like, well, she's like, I just wanted you to know. And I'm like, okay, well, thanks for letting me know. We had a guy study that we did on Tuesdays, like a young guy study, Bible study. And so we were doing that. And then that was over. And then she texted me and said, hey, he left. Do you want to come over?
He had sent me a text asking if he could speak to me. And I felt it was appropriate because in friendships, when there is some type of mishap, building those steps of trust, you just have to be communicative. And so I did just that. The purpose of me meeting with him was to say, you don't get to come back and forth. You get to decide if you want to be in Cameron's life or not. It's no longer me. I don't come with the equation. And that was the purpose and the intention of us meeting. And that visit was very short, maybe 10-15 minutes. I said, there's a man who wants to marry me and
I didn't know that
raise Cameron as his own. And you just have to decide if you want to be an active part of this life for him. I've never excluded him from the equation, but it was not simply come as you would like.
Yeah, she had this conversation with me. She's like, and I'm sitting there like, there's someone else? And she's like, yeah, it's you. And I'm like, oh, well, that's news to me. So I just kind of like looked at her and said, listen, I need some time. I need a couple days to go spend some time with the Lord. And I went and did that. And again, the Lord brought that verse to my mind, to memory. That's when I came back to her and I said, okay, listen, at that point I was 29 years old. And I said, I'm not in high school anymore, neither are you. I'm not here to play games. I'm not here to date. I don't believe in the concept of dating. We're going to court in the sense of we're going to see if we're compatible for marriage. And if we are, cool. If not, no hard feelings. So that's how it started. She met my family. I met her. I already knew her mom and her mom's side of the family. And then I met my not father-in-law at that time and her other siblings from him and different stuff like that. And just kind of went on so forth. And yeah, a year to the date of when we went to go watch The Blind Side, we got married. I proposed in August
6th,
August
2012.
And then 2010. And then we got married that December 12/12/10. That's how we met. We met when we were in high school. I was 16, she was 15.
15, yep.
We didn't see each other. We saw each other off and on for a couple of years. Then we didn't see each other for 10. And then when we did, it was kind of like I got feelings and she didn't. And then it was a year later. Fast forward to almost a year later. And then this time it was like the Lord was bringing us together.
Yep.
And the rest is kind of, as I say, history.
Yep.
Here we are with 4 kids.
4 children later. We look forward to sharing more on how we grew to be a family of 6, because that wasn't something that I always wanted. Courtship would be something that we are going to be sharing about, because there was a lot we had to figure out, which we believe was huge and enormous to the foundation of our marriage. What built where we can still stand here at 11 years and say very firmly that we are so happy we said I do before God and before man. And if you enjoyed this video and look forward to watching more like this, or have any questions about how we met and our life, please be sure to share those in comments.